As a Chelsea fan, we can never have a normal day. Like, never. Now we have a civil war going between like Barley and Bowley, and listen, the reactions I'm seeing is more annoying than actual the whole conflict. I'll be so real. Aside from what's coming out from these news, it is very unfortunate that it does come out and a lot of them end up being, I don't know how truthful everything is, because it seems as if sometimes people are contradictory. A lot of people aren't arguing in good faith when they talk about these type of things. A lot of people are doing the stan culture where they're bigging up one, they're dragging the other's bigging up, trying to tear them down. I'm like, realistically, a lot of us don't actually have the proper information to know fully what's going on. So we can kind of divulge with the information that we do have and go from there. But I don't really like how Mandem are doing this disingenuous thing because they want a point score. Like, why can't we all just look for what's the best option for Chelsea and talk about it in good faith? There are things that we can talk about where Bowley may have got wrong and then be honest about that. And there's a lot more things we can talk about with Egbali getting wrong and just be honest and say what would be the best foot forward. I don't really like how people are doing the stand coach. Oh, I'm Bowley in. Oh, I'm thinking out. Like, listen, we should be all looking for what's the best option for Chelsea. And in my personal option, the best option for Chelsea is for both of them to come to an understanding that they can both have impact and to have a better resolution. Very unlikely. At the end of the day, if we're going to make a decision, we need one person to be able to take charge so that we can have stability. The person who I feel the most sorry for is Maresca and the players. Imagine Maresca coming into a very already chaotic environment, has had the media throughout the entire summer talk about transfers, yada yada yada, all this crap, and then now he's come back and they're going to start asking him about ownership stuff. It's like, you're not helping the managers or the players to do well, and this is the type of politics that shouldn't be happening. And this is where I say both of them are culpable to blame. Like, I don't know why people are blaming one person more than the other, bro. They're doing this in a moment where we need stability more than ever. But listen, let's address the elephant in the room. Who do we want? It's hard to say. Based on all the briefs and everything, a lot of it goes to me personally to lean more to Bowley, because Bowley seems to be already a sporting guy. His interviews and how he's talked about the club and the fact that this isn't the first time. He did want to get Chelsea about 5 years ago, so he at least shows some showcase. Not to mention, he has a 30-year plan in stake, and Clerky are a private equity firm, so a lot of them end up, their main incentive is profit. I mean, running a football club as it is, profits and business is very important. I'm not going to be naive. However, there is a more human connection that I get with Bowley based on his interviews, how he addresses himself, even the way he presents himself with games. It feels as if he's proper Charles. Like, it does give that illusion, whether it's true or not. That is how I feel. So from that emotional standpoint, I do lean myself more with Bowley. However, one thing that Bowley unfortunately does get his criticism for is his first season. I've heard, and it seems like from reliable people such as Ornstein and Matt Law, he wanted to kill Tuchel. And for that alone, I back him a lot more, because I think us and a lot of Chelsea fans were very confused on why Tuchel got sacked. Not to mention, I know he wanted to bring Slot, who I think is another good manager who I rate. I also know he did have some wild things like bringing Ronaldo. I don't think that would have worked, but he did want to bring Neymar, and as Neymar being one of my favorite ever players, you best believe I wanted Neymar at my club, so I was more than happy. But he did give license to Tuchel to make those transfer windows, which Tuchel, I love you so much, but brother, your talent ID stinks. Oh my days, it stinks. And you gave us one of the worst windows we're going to have. So I think now with a better football structure in place, with the fact that he does have a 30-year plan, it seems as if he has a lot more knowledge towards the future, and the fact that he has already built like a huge franchise with something like the Dodgers, and they have won a World Series. So he's been able to do the sport thing and succeed in it for me to have more faith. So I hear that. Egbali, I think I'm mixed. I'm very mixed. Have they signed a lot of cold young players? Because I watch Estevao. Sorry, I butchered his name. I watch Estevao on a regular basis. I watch all those Palmeiras games. I watch Paez on a regular basis. I was watching them, Paez in Copa America. I watch all their games. So they're giving us talent that Chelsea, if we keep it real, have never been able to get so early. Aside from when we had KDB and stuff. And unfortunately, I love Mourinho, but he isn't the manager to really develop certain players. And they got shipped, and now we're looking at the repercussions of us selling like a KDB. So they have been able to do that, which is a plus. I rate Santos heavy. I rate Leslie heavy. However, at the same time, they have been very profit incentivized, that they've over-invested a large amount to people like David Washington, who I have nothing against the guy, but he's not played. He's currently in limbo, hasn't got a loan, so you've kind of failed his development. And if we don't sell him for a profit, it's one of those where you're like, this is kind of weird. Yeah, people like a Dazassi. I'm not here to scapegoat. He did play a lot at right back and etc., but he isn't necessarily somebody at this current juncture I would say is Chelsea level. So it's kind of like a confusing signing. Dewsbury Hall, I like the guy. I think he may become good for us later. But when we had Santos and Leslie, it feels like an unneeded buy. So in terms of their entire end, Mudryk, I think you have bags of talent. I think there is a player there. However, with the fact that we can't be patient with somebody who sometimes lacks some of the fundamentals in just footballing decisions, it becomes a little tedious with the money that you have spent. Even if people, Enzo, Caicedo, I love them, but they're a lot of money and a lot of money for midfielders. So if they don't come in with instant impact, a lot of people will have question marks when we still have deficiencies in our team. However, to their credit, they have built some cold players. I really dislike when some people pick and choose who was at the scene for us to get a certain player. They've done things with the academy setup, which I think is cold in terms of having the direction of football being all three stages, whether that's through Strasbourg, the under-21s, and now the main team. But similarly, they've done a lot of things that are very, very questionable. They sold Lewis Hall. You know what? If someone tells me the reason they're selling Chalobah, Gallagher, and Coates is because they don't rate them ability-wise, you know what? I can see it. Even whether I agree or not, like take away my personal feelings, I can see your outcome. Lewis Hall, you can't joke to me. You can't sell that to me that it has anything to do with an ability. And then when you come with briefs with the fact that he says, oh, he's a long-time Newcastle fan after he just signed a long-term contract, you're taking me for a dickhead, and that's one of the things I don't rate when it comes to the club. So I can be positive and negative about that, but I'm not going to make a concrete opinion because I knew once these new owners came in, instant success wasn't going to be it. I did not expect 12th, and I did not expect 6th. However, last season, I blame more of Poch than the thing because I think we did enough in games to be able to get top 4. Specifically, drawing with Sheffield and Burnley, no one can ever gaslight me, and I'm also not a big fan of Poch overall. So that's me a bit negative with that. But similarly, even if I'm not a big fan of Poch, that comes from the directors picking. I really rate Maresca so far. I really like how he's portrayed himself in interviews. So I think he hopefully will be the right one. At the same time, there is a lot of wrong that they have done. If I had to pick, I go Bowley simply because he gives me more of the footballing passion and connection that I've gotten with somebody like an Abramovich that we haven't seen in a while with our current ownership. I don't really care too much about the academy thing that some people are on. And what I mean by this is nothing different to what we've seen under Abramovich. So I'm used to the academy not getting. However, the level of crop of talent that we're getting now through the academy, I'm not going to say you have to make sure they have a pathway, but I would like for you to not overly flood with potentially mediocre players when there are cold ballers in state that we can use. They've already showed me with someone like Cole, Reece James, and etc. that they will use them. Giving Tyreek George a new contract, giving Joshua Chempong a new contract. I'm hoping these people get integrated, especially with the fact that we have a lot of games this season. So if they can do that right, then you know what? We're looking better in terms of the academy talents. I'm talking about the cold ones really come through and play. However, at the same breath, there needs to be some consequences for their lackluster with the amount of money that they have spent. So if Bowley's going to be the one to lead the charge, and he seems to be a person who wants to balance out the recruitment. I don't know his policy on the youth because I do like that we have some special talents going to come to the club. However, if you can be balanced and actually focus on making sure we get good enough players for the first team, I can't complain with that. And that's somebody who I'd prefer. Like, I'm not going to lie. I want Chelsea, and I want the right person who's going to lead Chelsea back to greatness. Because I think there's a lot of talent, but we also have to nurture that talent. You can't keep flooding and not giving these players a platform to actually perform. Because you have people like the Santos, and I watched Strasbourg's game. He's cold. He was cold in preseason. Last year preseason. I'm saying I want him to stay. They didn't give him that opportunity. He balled out. You gave him a bad loan the first 6 months, then you gave him a great loan at Strasbourg where he balled out. Then you sent him on loan again and got a player which, respectfully, it has nothing to do with his ability or his character. I just think he was unneeded because we had a lot of midfielders. But someone like Carney Chukwuemeka, we had these players. I think if Chelsea can keep the fundamentals of their wage structure while still being able to be flexible on certain players, I don't necessarily think Osimhen was the person to break that. Me personally, that's just me personally. If you think, I can understand your argument. I just don't think he's on the Haaland level where I'm like, yo, we have to pay him whatever money he demands. That's just me personally. However, with someone like a Musiala, sign me up. If it's someone like a Kvaratskhelia, sign me up. If it's someone like a Haaland, obviously I'm not saying Haaland's coming, but I'm giving you the hypotheticals of the type of player I'm cool with us breaking it. Then I'm like, cool. They've achieved stuff. They've showcased at the highest level. I can't argue with you because you're going to be a ceiling raiser. So there has to be some temperament shown. Overall, it's very difficult to say because I feel a lot of people don't actually argue in good faith. And instead, we live in the stand culture. People want to stand this guy, bruv. Back the club. Stop being a neek. Like, real talk. A lot of you guys care way too much about what my favorite player or thing is doing. What is the best option for Chelsea? And if I had to look at that objectively, No one has a proper answer to that question. It's just how you feel based on what they have been presenting with what they said in the media. I think there's a lot of people who say Eghbali and co don't care about the club. I don't personally think you invest the amount of money they do and say they don't care about the club. However, there are warning signs towards how they treat certain groups of players, how the development paths of certain players are done, that you can say that are they completely in the best interest of making Chelsea a powerhouse. And that is where someone I can agree with the money we spent, like especially. So I feel like at the end of the day, people are going to be disingenuous. People are going to have bad faith arguments. People aren't actually going to treat this with the proper importance that it needs to be treated with. We need to be sorted as soon as possible because we have league games and things to install. I don't want the team, the manager, the fans to be arguing about stupid stuff. I'm tired of the media constantly making up this whole thing about our bloated squad. It's a circus going down. All you're doing is proving them right. If two board members can't agree on the fundamental future of the club, something is wrong. So at the end of the day, there are good things in place. Win Stewart, hold scouts. Are they the best for the sporting director role? I'm not so sure. You haven't shown me anything to be sure that you would get best for those sporting roles. You identify someone like a Duran, you identify someone like a Gyökeres, and you wasted the whole summer to chase Osimhen without getting them. I'm a big fan of Duran. Obviously you won't know that, but I'm a big fan of him. He has all the fundamentals or everything to be a top striker. You secure him, especially in that deal for Maatsen. We don't waste the whole summer, and maybe we bring one more centre back, because if a Colwell and a Fofana get injured, who I think are cold, we're looking very scary, because a lot of us as fans can't trust the second string centre backs when we've continuously spent over $1 billion. I know a lot of them aren't actually in the first team. I know a lot of them are youth products that are going to come and potentially be game changers, but we have to talk about the now as well as the future. And if you can't balance the two, then you're not leading us in the right direction. I'm pretty patient, so I can be patient and say that I see a lot of positives, but I can also be understanding when people are very negative about certain situations in the club. And I think a lot of people just need to have that honest conversation. But Twitter isn't the argument to have that. Nobody argues in good faith or with the intention of actually doing that. They just want to make their point across and will spin the argument when it's best suited for them. That's why you have people posting pictures talking about this regime signed this guy, this regime signed this guy. Like, respectfully, we don't know all the facts, we don't know all the information. The people who say they know their inside sources, unless they're going to provide us with that context, we can only trust with whatever we know. So when Matt Law comes in with his articles talking about Bowley wanted to back Tuchel, I will trust him. When all these people will talk about how the club and their visions for the future, I'm going to trust them because they're reputable sources. People want to say that they're mouthpieces for the club. I don't know that because I'm not a journalist. So I'm only going to argue within the means of what I know. With what I know, Eghbali is a private equity. Bowley has run the Dodgers successfully. Bowley seems to be someone who has continuously wanted to get the club. Eghbali has invested a lot of money into the club. If I had to pick one, like I said, I pick Bowley, but I'm not going to pick one and choose. I want whatever is the best option for Chelsea, and whoever can guarantee me that, please be our owner. It's a long day, man. Like, unfortunately, Chelsea got main character syndrome, so we were always talking about some nonsense every time, but let's hope this gets resolved quickly and then we can go to our next game, because I'm confident we win our next game even when people are mad negative, and we can go back to what matters most, us winning on the football pitch, not this extra stuff that really shouldn't be concerning fans to this extent. But yeah, man,